and this is Amila, and welcome to A Happy Place, a podcast that celebrates inspiring personalities, self love, positivity, hope, and healing. Join us every month, where we sometimes speak directly to you with our poetry podcasts, and other days, where we bring you conversations with inspiring guest speakers. Our today's guest is Zayna Zubair. Zayna is a Sri Lankan born climate and sustainability professional, uniquely blending global advocacy with local impact. Internationally, she serves as a researcher, consultant, and creative, fostering Asia Pacific partnerships and facilitating events at numerous UN conferences for Care About Climate, a global youth led NGO. Nationally, she works with Child Fund Sri Lanka to democratize research and data. Driven by a passion for social change, Zaina also directs films and crafts stories around pressing social issues. Back in Sri Lanka, she founded the Sustainable Impact Foundation, dedicated to advancing climate awareness and education through upskilling boot camps and creative events that integrate South Asian art and culture. And we are so excited to welcome her for our today's episode.
Hi Zaina, thank you for joining us today. So, I've been following your work for a while now, and it's been truly amazing and inspiring to see all that you do. To start with, can you please take us through your inspiring journey and all that you do?
Yeah, of course. It's so nice to be here with you girls. Um, so my journey sort of started after uni, and I'd graduated during COVID, and I was trying to figure out what I would want to do after, and it was really hard to decide when everything had sort of slowed down a lot. And something that I realized I was sort of walking towards was a lot of creativity. So I really enjoyed making film and coming up with different creative ideas and projects. And I realized what I liked about that work was that it was showing a different side to social impact and different climate stories that you don't always usually find in science and data and numbers. And that was a nice balance between the two that I really enjoyed. And through that, I just started finding myself more within the creativity and communications part of social impact and different stories from different people and communities in different global south countries. And it's sort of been an important driving factor in building my journey and career within climate. And that's where I found myself right now.
That's amazing. It's so inspiring to see all the work that you do. It's amazing. So, to our audiences who doesn't know much about climate change, can you describe what exactly is climate change?
Wow, that's a big question. Um, I think if you take away all the stories from it, it's pretty much what it is right now is that it's pretty much a very large exacerbation of different weather problems around the world, and that it's not just a change in weather, but it's how frequent it happens and like at what large scales it happens at. Because when such large, frequent episodes of weather happens around the world, it starts to impact people a lot differently and at a much broader scale. And and it seeps into so many different sectors of different countries. So climate is not just weather, but it also has to do with people's access to education, people's access to healthcare, how efficiently a country can economically develop after a really bad episode of a climate disaster. Um, it also varies from different demographics, so how it impacts women versus how it impacts men versus how it impacts children. It Climate change seeps into so many different, very specific areas, and it's not necessarily always things you can see. It's things that you only see get worse over time, and it has to do with also just a lack of people taking accountability for their actions, whether it's investing more money into non-renewable energy, or it's people investing more money into industries which are causing more harm to the environment. But then it's people on the other side of that who get affected in the end, and it's consequences that keep growing. So that is hopefully in a nutshell what is happening within climate change right now.
That's just beautifully put. And yeah. And what made you become an advocate for climate action?
Oh, I think it was mostly because there wasn't a lot of it in Sri Lanka to start off with. That was something that I've always been curious about amplifying in general, social impact,
Right.
but I just never knew how to. And something that I really enjoy now in my work is a lot of leading a lot more community-led projects, which really amplify local people, how to make them more independent. And I think climate change really grew upon me because it feels really invisible, but it's very much there. And the aim is to then try help people equip to that before it's too late. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, climate change work, but it can be educating people within it so that when those sort of similar problems do come up later on, they already know how to deal with it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've stuck around with it.
Right. Amazing. I just start somewhere. I'm just so glad you're doing this. I know. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, and what is sustainability for you?
Oh, sustainability for me means something that I can continue doing long term and that it won't just have a positive impact on me, but it would have a positive impact around the people around me as well.
Right.
And it usually has to do with, for me, practices that I know that I can sustain, and it doesn't have to be some like like a trending Instagram reel that I've seen that now I have to practice doing what other people are doing. But it's just something that I can do with myself in my home
Right.
that, it's just a practice that becomes your routine, then it becomes a part of your daily life. So it's not something
Right.
that you have to go out of your way to do, but it's just
Yeah.
something that you're doing now.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and then when that, it then just becomes part of conversation, and then maybe other people feel inspired to try do something similar. So it never has to be anything so grand scale. Sometimes it just has to do with you as an individual trying something that sort of betters yourself and the people around you.
Right. That's great. I mean, it's amazing, like, because everything starts at home, and as I said, it's amazing. Like, there were like little list of things could like really make a huge impact. So,
Yeah,
yeah, great.
yeah.
So, how and why was SIF born? Because we just went through all that you do, and it's a starting thing, yeah. So, just take us through the new thing that you're starting.
So the organization that I'm starting up, which is the Sustainable Impact Foundation, is a very localized way to try educate people around climate awareness within South Asia and within the global South. So it takes into consideration people's like the local impact of people and their communities. So taking what people already know and helping to amplify that through their skills. So something I try to abide by is not just taking what happens in the West and then applying it to the other side of the world and thinking the same things are going to happen. It's important that I and the people around me understand that it's important to take what local communities know and adapt those skills and help them become more independent in what they know and then bring new ideas to the table. And so my goal is to just help people educate in this sector and just educate skills and these skills that can then be transferred into jobs or other practices that they want to do, whether it's developing their own businesses or trying out new jobs or presenting new projects or anything that it is. It's to help within the field of social impact and make people more confident in a field that's still growing and in a field that is really new.
Yeah, that's great because it's very new to Sri Lanka, so it's just so good that you're doing it. I'm just so grateful that you are doing something like that 'cause it's really inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you, it's very sweet.
And it's truly so fascinating to know that you direct films around social issues. Would you like to share a bit about it? Like, what are the films that you directed and what social issues were those stories focused on?
Yeah, so I think my favorite one was this project that I did 2 years ago with this theater in the US, and this was also a little bit out of COVID, so we all worked online, and they had gathered 77 storytellers from around the world, and we had to
So
present
cool.
a story on our relationship with the environment or climate change. And I wanted to write about Sri Lanka because I had this very vivid memory of when I was 8 and how important the ocean was to me. And it still is important, but it was the first time that I got exposed to climate and storytelling at the same time. And through that, it was really nice to have Sri Lanka as a topic of conversation without the data and without the politics and without people's agendas and like narratives and everything. And it was my first exposure with other people on such a global scale as well. And all our stories then got collected into a script, and that script got produced into a theater production in Sweden. And you could then see like you would able to then visualize people's words on a theater stage, which was a really unforgettable experience for me. And that's something that I have now been trying to think about. How do you then cultivate that and bring that to other countries like Sri Lanka and uh, make environments like that safe for people to be vulnerable and more open about how they feel about the environment, even if it's sort of that they don't know anything about it. How do I build environments like that where it's okay to say that you don't know, but that you want to learn more? And yeah, that's probably one of my favorite creative moments.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's like wow. Amazing. Should definitely like try them here as well because yeah, it's amazing. So, what issues with regard to sustainability and climate change do you think that needs critical attention, and how are you hoping to spread more awareness on them?
Oh my God, that's a loaded question. Um, I think if I were to look at it from a Sri Lankan point of view, for me, I would go from it from a very educational lens because education is and should be accessible to as many people as possible. And, it's not just sitting in a classroom, but it's also having communities of people that you can talk to,
Yeah,
whether it's concerns you have, worries you have, where do you want to upskill, where can you look for jobs, finding these resources where people can access this information freely as well. I think starting at the very base level and building a foundation where people can approach climate as freely as they want to understand it would be a good starting point, because climate, like I said at the start, it falls into so many different categories. So even at people at work, how do they practice it? If you're at home, how do you practice it? And it feels very small. It feels very small if you feel like you're the only one doing it. But the moment you start talking about it with people, the
yeah.
more people realize how normalized it should be. And I think if I look at it from the point of view of Sri Lanka, I think making all of this information as accessible as possible for more people to have more awareness of it is a good starting point. And I also think things like climate change, sustainability, these are all sometimes just buzzwords for people. They just like throw it in And then
Right.
it's like, oh yes, they've made like a really good point, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
And, really breaking down and actually allowing people to feel how it would personally affect them is an important strategy, I think, as well, to push people on it. And I think more globally, I think sometimes it really deters people from learning more about it when it's just science and data and numbers. How do numbers really apply to anyone if they don't know how it affects them personally? So I think a good mix of representation and data is important as well when trying to amplify what climate change is and bring awareness to it and not make it seem like, yeah, it's the end of the world. Well, that's all very relative and it depends on how we can approach it as well. So I think having a realistic but optimistic perspective on climate change and sustainability is important when trying to advocate for it.
Right, absolutely. So what do you think are those regular simple things which we do that leads to climate change?
That leads to climate change.
Yes.
Oh wow. I think if we look at it from a more corporate setting, because I think that those are usually the largest driving factors towards climate change. I think it's just no one having accountability, no one saying that maybe you should look at improving the way just using your energy in your corporate spaces or the way you practice um you know the way you practice how you handle your food management, waste management in corporate spaces. How are you sort of guiding and educating your employees on your best practices at your workplace? When there's no accountability for what corporates run and how they run it, like it wouldn't then make sense to blame them and say that, well, it's your fault that the climate is exacerbating in different countries. But once there is accountability, and usually accountability can come from different governments and different frameworks as well, it then helps put corporations in their place and that they have to abide by certain rules in order to then take more responsibility for the consequences that they're putting out on climate change.
Right. So okay, so well said, and just hope this podcast is gonna be like helpful to many people. Yeah. Because like something
Yeah.
that we have like experienced but that people are very much educated about these things. So just so
Mm.
good to have you pick these things about. Exactly. And so what are simple things that you think that like everyday things that we can do to reduce the carbon footprint and make conscious and sustainable choices?
Well, I would say it starts with a bit of a mentality at first to say that, like I said before, you may not always see the changes that you're making. So it will make a change, but you may not always see it. That's the hardest part about being in this field.
Yes.
You, it's not funded as enough, and even the hopes that you do have for the impact that you do want to make, you may not always see it, but it does happen. And that's the first part. I think the mentality part of it. Then it comes to then, well, what around you at first, to start small, would would lead to these practices being sustainable. So for example, I know it's really hard to walk in Colombo. I really know how it's hard to walk in Colombo, but um, you know, would you can take the small things of, would you rather drive in your car or can it be walked or can you take a bicycle maybe? Um, or can you carpool with people if you're all going to the same destination? It seems very logical, but sometimes these aren't things that always cross people's mind because it's just in practice that you just do things. So taking that extra step to think about, well, how will my actions then impact what could happen later on? It could also be that, you have a function and another function and another function, and then suddenly it seems like you need three different brand new outfits. But it doesn't always hurt to first check on what you have, or you borrow from people. And again, this seems very like a very logical thing to do, but then when you start to actually practice it, you realize how much it then, how much of a sustainable impact it does then have. Um, because if you even look at clothing, for example, what is the difference between you buying something for the first time and not wearing it again compared to you trying to reuse something you already have or reuse something someone else has? Well, one, it saves on your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the second is if you purchase something, it then requires that product to then be made again. Now, again, it seems like the impact is very small if one individual does it. But if you then compare it to, say, 1,000 other people doing what you're doing, so they decide they're not going to reuse, they're going to go buy something new for the first time. Take 1,000 people doing that. Imagine how much of that product then needs to be made again. And then if you look back on that, what does the production of that look like? Where is the material coming from? Who is delivering it? How much time does it take? The emissions on those deliveries, all of that, it's not seen. You don't think about that. You just think about, I just need something new to wear. But there's so much more to it that's happening behind the scenes that no one thinks about. And it's normal not to think about it as well. Um, I'd say some other things would be, if you're going to the supermarket, take a reusable cloth bag. I know we have the silly bags at all our different
Yeah, the
supermarkets that,
convenient. Yeah.
yeah. And you again, it's just you put your products in the bag and you take it home. Maybe you use the bag one more time and then it's done. But say you could cut down on using 50 of those bags if you take one reusable bag. I would also say, using reusable water bottles, it's hot in Colombo, it's hot everywhere we go. So then, what is the difference between using one reusable bottle compared to buying a plastic bottle every couple of hours because the bottle is over? Now, it's not even good to reuse plastic water bottles, and it has impacts on your health as well.
Exactly.
So I'd say those are a few different practices. I also think, or if you're thinking more on an organizational basis, I know the wooden cutlery is not always so palatable, but using the wooden cutlery compared to plastic, or using paper cups compared to the plastic cups. If you're having more corporate events, don't over buy so much food if you don't know what you're going to do with that extra food, for example. Or if you order from a restaurant for your entire business, well, make sure that anything that isn't eaten, make sure that is taken into account. Maybe you give it to other people, maybe you give it to people who need it. Don't just throw it away and assume that that will be okay. Because again, this is not always the most normal thing to think about, which is what happens to the food after. But what does happen? Does it get disposed of properly, or does it just get thrown away somewhere where then it just becomes waste? It becomes sewer, and it's not managed properly. So a lot of these things, again, like I said, it's not always the most practical to think of the consequences, but once you do, it then helps to rethink before you do something. And I think that that is probably a very sustainable way of approaching your day to day.
Absolutely. It's just amazing all that you just said. It's so just really hope that whoever would be listening to this would actually take it
Apply them,
on, yeah,
yeah.
just try and apply that. Would make a huge difference. And so what are the new projects you're working on?
Oh, well, I have one with you guys. If you if you guys want to, we can share a bit both about
Yeah, of
what we're
course.
both doing.
Yeah, of course. Do you wanna like say something about it?
Yeah, so I mean, it would be this is something I'm really excited about because as much as I've worked within sustainability, I've never thought of getting into fashion and sustainability. So this is going to be a big learning curve for me as well. But it will be well, my segment of it will be educating people on upcycling and the more technical side of what net zero is and what zero waste is and how people individually contribute to that and how all of this works within a more sustainability and fashion lens and how it applies to Sri Lankans as well, which is something really important for me to try amplify. So yeah, this is something I'm really excited about.
Absolutely, so I'll be so excited for that. So to all of you listening, so we're also collaborating for a workshop and we'll be releasing it very soon. So stay tuned for it. And if you had to describe yourself and your journey in one word, what would that be?
In one word?
Yes.
Oh my God. Um, I think I would go with passionate.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah. That is, I know, that is true. Yeah. I'm just so grateful that you joined us, and it's been so educative and so informative. All that you said, it's amazing, and it's just so excited to see all that you're going to be doing in the future and for our collaboration, of course. So thank you so much for joining us today, and wishing you all the very best for everything ahead of you, and keep doing the amazing, amazing work you do. Um, and yeah, just so excited. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Thank
girl.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Hope you're as inspired as we are. To connect with Zaina, you can find the link to the Instagram page of our foundation, SIF, in the description section. Also, do let us know what you think about this episode. You can tag us on Instagram so that we can read and repost your precious feedback. You can find the link to our Instagram as well in the description section. Thank you so much once again to all of you who stayed with us till the very end. We hope to bring you more and more inspiring conversations and your most loved poetry filled episodes. Until next time, stay inspired, keep inspiring, keep smiling wide, wider, and wider.